do it locally? Do you do it on your local computer?
I do it on my local computer. I just find it's just, yeah,
You know where it
it's
is.
more reliable. And then
Yeah.
upload it later to our YouTube site.
Good.
Yeah.
And we
The
said
Hub's YouTube site or Glen Rock?
We have a Bergen Hub YouTube channel.
oh, that's good to know.
I didn't realize that. You guys are.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
Larry set it up.
Thank you, Larry. Larry should be oh, actually, yeah, Larry should be joining us, by the way.
That would be good. That would be good. Yeah. Who do we have here?
Oh, we got a good crowd today. Wow.
Ryan. Okay, we have a good. People are coming in. That's good. Hey, Bob. Bob Upton from Ridgewood.
Hi, guys. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Long time no see.
There
I
she
know. I
is.
missed you all. It's good to see all your faces.
Been a while.
It has. Can't wait to hear all the updates on what's been going on.
Lots.
I have a question. Back in the day, when we were meeting in person, how was the attendance? Because I never had the opportunity to go to an in-person meeting.
Oh, wow.
Oh, we would have maybe 20 or so. One of the last ones we had was in the Glen Rock Arboretum in our new building, and I really missed doing that. Yeah, I would say the average number around 20, a little
Yeah.
more, a little less sometimes, right, Lauren?
I think so, yeah.
We have a Rock and Hub group.
Yeah, we
really do.
We do.
Glad to be part of it.
I really thought that several months ago that we would have it live in the Arboretum, and that's one reason why I volunteered for it. I'm bummed that we can't do it, but fifth time's a charm.
I would have thought.
Okay.
I would have thought that maybe the higher attendance when we were meeting in person was partially initial enthusiasm in the group. So I don't know whether the declining number is as much to do with Zoom as it is to do with just, some dwindling interest.
Hey, who you calling unenthusiastic, Bob?
Hey,
Well, obviously not the people that are here.
hey,
I think
Classic.
too, there's just so many meetings on, once everything went virtual, it was easy to host a meeting.
Yes.
So there's just so much online happening now that people are fatigued.
I think the real problem is there's nothing like to really look forward to. Like there's no snacks, there's no beer afterwards.
yeah.
I remember that one of the first meetings we had in Glen Rock, everybody piled into the Glen Rock Inn afterwards, and we filled
Yeah.
that place up. There must have been 30 people there. You remember that, Lauren?
Yeah, you guys after every meeting, everybody would go out.
We'd often go out. Yeah, Larry was a regular, and that's my theory. So we'll test it soon, hopefully.
Now all we can do is have our medical marijuana at home. We can't meet in the club anymore.
Yeah.
And when you were lucky enough for Oradell to host, Margaret would bake for you.
Oh, awesome.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that
Here's
was
delicious.
here's to the end of COVID.
yeah. Raise my invisible glass to that.
Yes.
All right. We have a pretty good group, so I think I'm going to get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm pleased to be able to host this, and we've got a couple of others from Glen Rock who are here. Ben, he's been involved in some of the EV actions I'll be talking about, and I think Sylvia is joining us soon if she hasn't already. So let's get going. So the main sort of the particular main event, I guess we call it, for the first 45 minutes or so, we're going to talk about getting our fleets electrified. And for that, I needed significant help and hand-holding, and asked Tracy Woods from Jersey to be able to bat for this, and I'm really grateful that she could come. And yes, we are recording this just for people who want to know that, for people who've arrived late. It is being recorded. So yeah, the two of us will kind of tag team. I'm going to start off first on this first action here, on this first part of the agenda, and then we're going to go into the standard format, which is committee reports, so we can get everybody updated on what's been going on. And we're going to spend most of that time on single-use plastics and styrofoam, because there's been a lot of action in that area. But we'll have a chance for everybody to chime in, and we take it from there, community team announcements and new business. So, okay. Any questions about format or anything before I get going? All right, gonna go. So I'm gonna hopefully take about 20 minutes, and I'll really try to stick to that because I don't want to take time away from Tracy. But I can take some questions in the middle. Feel free to interrupt if you want to. But then we'll save. We'll have time at the end of this segment for questions. So yeah, this is actually Columbus, Ohio. Apparently they have some goal of getting 300 electric vehicles in their fleet. So I'm not sure we're going to be at their level, but they're also a large regional municipality, but it's a pretty picture. So, the question is why now, and then how? So I'm going to be covering hopefully all the why nows. There's a bunch of good reasons for it, and Tracy and I will be talking about the how to do it. Of course, for me, and I think for many of you, all of you, I think, we all know there's an urgent need to clean up the air in New Jersey, as well as dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and cars and other vehicles are a really important area to go after, because the transportation sector in this state accounts for a whopping 46% of the state's greenhouse gas emissions, which is higher probably than any other state in the country, which maybe isn't surprising considering how many roads we've got. And 40% of that number, so maybe around 20%, comes from cars alone. It's really substantial. So if we can start replacing those cars with electric cars, that is going to go a long way towards meeting the goal. The state has a goal of registering 1/3 EVs in 3 years, and I'm not sure how they're going to achieve that at the current rate. There's currently only 50,000 EVs on the roads in New Jersey, and the Charge Up New Jersey EV rebate program has only netted about 9,000 new cars since it started 2 years ago. But that's the goal anyway. And I figure, it's incumbent on us to do everything we can in other ways to carry this out, or move it forward at least. And that's where the community level action comes in. That's us, the community activists. So I just pulled this out from a recent article from the Morristown Daily Record. Here's what New Jersey municipalities can do to help boost use of electric vehicles. So encourage residential use of EVs by making available public charging stations. Many of us have already done that. I'm not going to be talking too much about that today. The second, discuss with builders about the new requirements for new construction, including make-ready parking spots. So I'm going to touch on that, because that's important that everybody knows about this new legislation. I know many of you do already. And then the third one is what we're going to talk mostly about, which is how to, begin to replace older gas municipal vehicles with EVs. So the new charging legislation passed in July of last year. It establishes numerical requirements and zoning standards for installation of electric vehicle supply equipment and make-ready parking spaces. Make-ready just simply means pre-wired. So when new construction goes up, that's the opportunity to get the wiring in, because nobody wants to pay for ripping up parking lots and sidewalks and building foundations to put in a new wire. Better to put it in at the very beginning, get it done with, and then it's much easier to install charging stations after that when the wire is where it needs to go. It also facilitates the application process for installation of EVs. And our local Assemblywoman Lisa Swain was involved in that and getting that passed through the Assembly. And then this is interesting. The second one is new multi-unit construction has to include these make-ready parking spaces. At the moment, 15% of total parking, and that number is going to go up each year. Initially, a third of those spaces need to actually include the charging equipment. And all municipalities are encouraged to pass local ordinances which reflect the state law. You don't have to, but it's a good idea. But the reason for doing it is it immediately informs the whole borough governing body and people working, DPW, the building code officials, as well as the planning board folks about this new legislation that passed. So I'm just going to quickly show you an example. This is the ordinance that Glen Rock passed late last year. It's real easy to do. It's just, if you whatever way you have of interacting with your council or mayor, if it's through a council liaison, for example, to your green team, just let them know about it. The Department of Community Affairs of the state has already prepared a model ordinance, and basically you pretty much copy and paste that, because most of that can't be changed. And that's what, in my case, in Glen Rock's case, it was forwarded to our borough attorney, took a look at it, and I don't think it took him a lot of time to customize it for Glen Rock. These slides, I'll upload them to Basecamp. So with these hyperlinks, hopefully they're helpful for folks. And I've also included the Glen Rock ordinance there. And then the second part about, the legislation provides for the charging stations have to be installed, pre-wiring and charging stations in new buildings. When we found out about this, we were really excited, because we knew in Glen Rock there were two new buildings that were being planned. One of them is a fairly large, 67 or so new apartment buildings in a lot that had been pretty much abandoned for a long time, as well as commercial. And so right away, when we heard the presentation at the planning board meeting, we let them know about this new legislation. And in the next iteration of the plan, of the building plan, here were the charging stations were there. They appeared. No questions asked, really. It's really a very small ask in a large project like this. So this particular project will have around 16 chargers. I know that number's gone up and down a bit, but it's going to be substantial, and it's going to really serve the folks that use that eventually.
And can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can you clarify that this is entirely voluntary, or this is,
This is not voluntary. This is the law. They have to do it.
so starting in July of last year?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if someone can speak to this, there is a project that was approved after this was put into effect in Allendale to build a complex that includes both municipal and residential offices.
Okay.
So should that project be governed by this legislation?
Does it
Yeah.
have more than 5 off-street parking spaces?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I think I
Yeah.
can say something about that. It depends when the application was submitted to the planning board and when the date that the application was considered complete. And then you would compare that date with the implementation date for the new state requirement. So it all depends upon the dates of the application. And the fact that it was approved after the date of the new law, that is not necessarily what governs. It's the date that the application was submitted and and the date it was considered complete by the planning board. That's the date that governs, and that was our understanding here in Glen Rock.
Okay, and who is that speaking, please?
I'm Ben Meyer from Glen
Oh,
Rock.
hi, Ben. Okay. Well, maybe we can speak offline because I want to address this with the council and the planning board here in Allendale. And I want to make sure that I know what I'm saying before I start speaking.
I can look up the specific date in the new statute and get that to you, Mark. And then
Okay.
probably the planning board attorney would be familiar with what those requirements are. If you could just point out the significant facts to those people.
Awesome.
The date is July 9th, 2021.
Yeah.
The question
Go ahead.
that that's the date that the law was passed, but the rules were made by the EDA. I think that ordinance got passed on September 1st. So I guess it's for and I know that they say if you go to the DCA sample or template ordinance page, it says became effective September 1st.
Yep, you're right.
But it's
Tracy.
worth asking people who are, running these programs.
Okay.
There was some thought that even before the passing of those rules, that just the fact that the date in the statute was July 9th, that was the date that governed, and you would compare that to whether the application was considered complete by the planning board as of that date. And for our situation in Glen Rock, we had an application that was complete by that date, and therefore it was a requirement.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.
Great. That's a good question. I mean, that's why it's so important to get this information out there to a wide audience.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ken, one more thing. Hey, Mark, it's Jay. As you're evaluating it, Ben is correct. One of the analyses is when the application was deemed complete for the planning board, but you should investigate whether or not there were any variances associated with the application. Those variances might be before the planning board or they might be before the zoning board. And if the complete application is not yet deemed complete, then the application will be subject to the time of decision rule under New Jersey law. You need to talk to your borough attorneys, but under the time of decision rule, even though the application may have been submitted before the new law was passed or the new law later became effective, if it's not yet deemed complete, then it would be subject to the law at the time of the decision, when the ultimate decision for approval was granted. And so it still might be subject to this new statute.
Okay. Well, good information. Thank you.
All right. We're going to then shift gears now and talk about fleet electrification. So I'm sort of learning about this. I'm really only maybe a couple weeks ahead of you all. So I can speak about the experience I've had recently at Glen Rock, introducing the idea to them and getting the ball rolling. And what we decided to do was to just have some very specific goals. And this is part of what I presented to our council last week, actually. So first year, replace 2 old gas cars in the fleet with 2 electric vehicles. Install EV chargers for those vehicles and develop plans for repairing an updated fleet inventory. The next 2 to 5 years, continue to monitor municipal fleet cars and also trucks, because that's come up because there's a big interest in getting some electric trucks to be replaced by cleaner vehicles to align with the Clean Energy Master Plan. So that's kind of the simple goal to have in mind, and that you can modify that however you want. The fleet inventory turns out to be a really key tool to all of this, because a lot of the decisions can flow from this, and a lot of the rationale can flow from this. So what I did was I took some pieces from our last fleet inventory, which was done actually in the previous certification, 2018. I think, Ben, you actually put this together using 2017 numbers, if I remember right. And so I
Yes,
just took.
yes, that's right. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I just took just an example of some of the cars that we had from that, just to show you, and some of the relevant columns here. But what you'll see is we've got a bunch of old cars in a very old garbage truck. But what we didn't really have is some really key information like miles driven total since purchase, miles driven in that year of interest, and then the fuel used in that year to get an idea. So the idea is you would want to prioritize the replacement of cars or trucks that got a lot of mileage, got a lot of miles on them. Police vehicles would be the obvious place to go, but that may not be the first one to try to replace. But I think Tracy's also going to touch on this a bit. There is tracking software that might help some of us track this information. I included here a hyperlink to the Sustainable Jersey Fleet Inventory spreadsheet. So for anybody who's going to be doing that action on fleet inventory, that's the place to start. It is a lot of work, but it's worth it, because that's how we can identify the vehicles that we want to be replacing as we go. I just kind of to point out one aspect of this is that police are actually in Glen Rock, the police vehicles use by far the greatest amount of gas. Did a simple calculation that with our police cars and the amount of gas that was consumed in 1 year, which I think was 2017, it cost about $73,000. And if you look at the efficiency of an electric car, if those were all replaced, we'd be saving $48,000 annually. That's pretty substantial. That's annually. So we'll talk more about that later, why it makes financial sense to do this. The other really important step to take, and the thing that probably is the most difficult, is figuring out who your stakeholders are and engaging with them. These could be anyone in any of the departments, like the borough administrator, the CFO, Department of Public Works, Parks and Rec, buildings, the police department. In most towns, these departments have vehicles. Consider signaling your intentions prior to the budget discussions, which for many towns, those discussions are starting now, because of course, if you want to get an electric car, it's going to be in the budget. make a brief presentation to the mayor and council, explaining the benefits. That's something I think is really important, and it definitely was well received when I gave it last week in Glen Rock. You know, the idea is just to get your foot in the door. Our in Glen Rock, we're not sure we're going to get 2 cars, but we've gotten a commitment that we would replace the Parks and Rec car. So in my opinion, that's alone is a big win. If we can just get 1 car in the municipal fleet, that gets, you know, people will be looking at it, people will be curious about it, and hopefully it'll get some good, you know, it'll get good reviews. And, you know, people will see it's not such a scary thing after all. You know, and for some other people, they're going to be impressed to learn that EVs actually save the taxpayer money. And that's, you know, you can't shy away from that, and you can't turn away from that. You know, if the word gets out that the town's not converting their fleet to electric cars and they're not taking advantage of saving money, some people are going to really, you know, raise a holler about that. You know, there's a lot of different studies that are out there, although I think, you know, a lot of the data is still pretty young, but, you know, the cost of ownership is substantially less than that of gas cars. You know, and there's a bunch of factors that drive that, particularly the cost of electricity, which is cheaper than gas per mile driven. And on the maintenance side, I think there's, you know, time will tell really how much savings there is, but I think it's going to be substantial just because there's so many fewer moving parts. There's virtually no fluids to change. The brakes last longer, et cetera, et cetera. There's no tune-ups. You know, fleet owners love EVs, and that, you know, pretty much says it all. So if you own, you know, 200 cars, a lot of them have already switched entirely to EVs because they know it's going to save them so much money.
Ben, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you have any information in this presentation or in general about incentives that are available for governments to purchase these vehicles?
Yep, I'm trying to get through this quickly so Tracy, we can get to Tracy. She's going to talk about that.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. That's, of course, that obviously factors into this in a big way. So this study here in 2016. It's pretty old, but they found that the payback period was 5.1 years. And if you saw in that inventory, we have cars that are 20 years old in Glen Rock. So I think we can achieve some savings. I like this comparison because they compared the Ford Focus gas version with the Ford Focus electric version. So it's a very good, you know, sort of apples to apples comparison.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
If I could just share, in Upper Saddle River, Ira and I have spent a lot of time speaking with municipal officials about electric vehicles, but especially the police department. I recently talked to the chief, and I'll just share with everyone the thoughts that you might want to be prepared for your conversation. We had shared a lot of information about Teslas and police departments in Greenwich, Connecticut and Westport, Connecticut and other communities. And our police chief said he was hesitant to move to Teslas because he said police vehicles get a lot of dings and bumps and are in accidents more often than other standard vehicles. And he was concerned about the availability of repair shops and replacement parts for Teslas. So in that regard, he was ready to move forward. He told me he was moving forward. He was looking forward actually to getting a Mustang for the police cruisers and or F-150 truck for the department. So just might think about that when you're talking with your officials.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I have heard that from others as well. In fact, I heard that from our director of DBW. He was concerned about that for electric trucks. Of course, but there are other, you know, makes for cars, and maybe, you know, it'll be less expensive to fix the fender on an electric Mustang than a Tesla. But as I think many of you know, the county has, or they should have by now, a fully outfitted, you know, Tesla as police car, which is going to be available to go to municipalities for kind of to look under, for them to evaluate for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or so. I'm not sure how it's actually going to work out, but that's the idea. is the county prosecutor's office will loan this car out to police departments to evaluate. So I think this is second to last slide. Just giving, this is something, you all, a lot of you have seen or know about this, but I thought it was important to be able to come and actually show the prices to our municipal officials so to see that, they're not all super crazy expensive cars. And, the one on the top here, the Nissan Leaf, is maybe the one I'd recommend that they get, because they're never going to drive more than 150 miles in a day, not even probably a third of that. And if you can get one of those cars with the Clean Fleet rebate for $19,000, that, no one's going to complain about that. But there's a lot of variety now. And there's also, the Ford E-Transit, I didn't realize that's actually available now. And that's incredibly cheap for a, basically a commercial van. If any, I couldn't talk our DPW director to get a van. So I think that's a good deal. But that's, of course, not alone a reason to get an electric vehicle. So that's something you can look at. And this is just a sort of brief, a couple of bullets on what other towns are doing. In Bergen County, the Demarest Police purchased a Chevy Bolt. So they took the leap and did that. Apparently they love it. And I mentioned the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office with their, police Tesla car. Plainsboro bought 4 Leafs. And Somerset County, I think, has already bought a number of cars. So not, there's not a lot who have done this, but it's starting. And this grant program that Tracy's going to talk about is going to, really jumpstart it, I think. So I want to turn it over to Tracy. So she's, I mentioned Sustainable Jersey, and Tracy, I can stop sharing.
Great.
And let you take it over.
We'll start sharing. I'm going to do, you'll all have to be patient with me because I want to show you information from a couple different sources, which means I'm going to have my whole screen on view. Here we go. And I see several friends that I know from working, with different towns, including Tara from Maywood, who was one of our technical assistants municipalities that we worked with this year. And one of the things that we helped Maywood with was getting started on a fleet inventory. So that was a good experience. But just to go into the presentation. So I'm going to talk about a couple things. I'm going to talk about how a lot of the actions the activities that Ken was just talking about for electrifying the fleet and supporting electric vehicles in the municipality get points in the Sustainable Jersey Action or certification program. I'm also going to talk about a new program that's available from the Board of Public Utilities called the Community Energy Plan Grant Program, and talk about how planning for fleets and electric vehicles ties into that program. And there's funding available for all New Jersey municipalities as part of that program. Then I'm going to talk about some resources that Sustainable Jersey has to aid things like the template fleet inventory that Ken was talking about, and some other resources. And then to Jay's point, I'm going to talk about incentives for doing these projects in municipalities. So first we have 3 actions that, those of you who are familiar with the Sustainable Jersey program will have seen in the past. The fleet inventory is where you make a list of all your vehicles that you already have in the fleet, and that will help you to see, make choices about which ones should be replaced in new budget cycles. And we have a template fleet inventory worksheet that's included as part of that action. I'm going to show that when we get to the resources section, because I want to talk about how it ties to fleet analysis tools that are available online. And then also we have the public EV charging infrastructure action, which awards points for installing EV chargers that are accessible to the public. I also want to call out Ken and Glenrock did something pretty innovative that they just posted about today on social media, where instead of having a networked EV charger, they used an online app to collect payment from non-networked EV chargers, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. I just saw today, Ken. And then the third action is purchase alternative fuel vehicles. So this awards points for adding electric vehicles to the municipal fleet, or for some of the heavier weight vehicles, it will also award points for natural gas versions of those vehicles. And then for police, it also awards points for hybrid vehicles. Then there are two new actions. One of them is totally new, which is the electric vehicle outreach action, which I know from being familiar with you guys' hub, you already do a ton of this up in Bergen County, where you have EV outreach events and do a lot of work to bring the word about electric vehicles to your communities. So this is a way to get points for doing that work. This used to be included in the Make Your Town EV friendly action, but we pulled it out separately now. And in order to get points in this new action, you need to target at least 2 different audience types, from residential, commercial, multifamily, commercial fleets, workplace, and then dealers, car dealers, and set out outreach activities. And that action isn't up on the website just yet. It's actually in my to-do list for tomorrow to help get it all finished up to get uploaded onto the screen. But I wanted to make you aware that it's going to be part of the next certification cycle. And the other action, we always had the Make Your Town EV friendly action, but it's due to the the changes in state law that Ken was talking about earlier, we really had to go back in and revamp this action to reflect those changes. So it has some resources, on top of the resources that are offered from DCA for passing that local template ordinance for the reasons that Ken was sharing before. And it also has some information about training for first responders to learn about how to address emergencies with EVs. EVs are very safe, but the way that you handle them in an emergency is slightly different. And some of those resources are very low cost or free to municipalities as well. So there's a lot of guidance in the revised version of that action. And so those are the actions, and they're all up on the Sustainable Jersey website, except for the EV outreach action, which is going up very soon. And now I want to tell you really quickly about another program that's available from the Board of Public Utilities, and it's called Community Energy Plan Grants. And these are for all the components of energy. So energy efficiency, solar, electric vehicles, looking at microgrids and, all the different elements of energy planning. And all of New Jersey's municipalities are eligible for $10,000. And then New Jersey's overburdened municipalities, which are defined by the list on the right side of the screen, are eligible for $25,000 grant. And those overburdened municipalities can also get technical assistance from Sustainable Jersey to put together their energy plan grant. But this is, it's a great program, and it includes several aspects for thinking about transportation and electric and fleet electrification. The 8 specific actions that it calls out around EV planning are listed here. And these are all, I'm actually going to stop because I want to, show you this application really quick. This is the Community Energy Plan Grant application. And as applications for grants go, this is actually really simple to do. When you come down to the bottom part of it, you just fill out the basic information, and then you have to do a draft budget for what you might spend the planning money for. And then they ask you to indicate which specific topics of energy planning you're interested in. And you can see here the electric or the transportation sector ones are here. And you just click which ones you're interested in. It's not binding. So if you change your mind as you start to do the research, you can change your focus. And then the fourth component of the application is that you have to pass a resolution, and they included a template for that as well. But so if we go back to the PowerPoint, sorry, these are the 8 actions that are listed as the recommended actions from the Community Energy Planning Grant. And one of the things that when Ken and I were first talking about this presentation, he said, give us like a to-do list, like how do we, support fleet electrification and EVs through green teams and municipalities. And these are the actions, and you can see that they tie closely to the resources and actions that we were just talking about before. So, information about that supportive zoning and regulations goes to the Make Your Town EV Friendly action, purchase alternative fuel vehicles, there's an action for that. All of these are found, the resources for them are found in those actions we just went over. And some more resources that we have at Sustainable Jersey is we have a procurement guide. This picture says that it's from 2019, but it actually just got updated in December. And it includes information about where municipalities can find the vehicles that are on state contract or the other purchasing co-ops, including the national purchasing co-ops like Climate Mayors that Ken referenced, and Sourcewell is another popular one. Even 2 years ago, there wasn't really that much out there aside from the vehicles that were on the state contract, and that is totally changed. There's so many more options that have just come online in the last little bit here that really I recommend taking it. If you looked at this a couple years ago, this procurement guide is newly refreshed with new options, and it's worth taking a look at. One thing to note about the vehicles that are on state contract is just a couple months ago there were 7 of them. And it shrunk down quite a bit. And that's because it's the time of the year where they're renewing the purchasing contracts with those vendors, including that Ford Mustang that people have been talking about using for police vehicles. That's currently not listed on the contract. And it's just because they're working out the new contract deals. So, just keep an eye on that because it's a pretty dynamic resource, and it changes the vehicles that are available on state contract. And just to go into that resource that Ken was talking about for the fleet inventory action, we have a template fleet inventory document that does a lot of the carbon calculating and a lot of the mileage and everything calculating for you. It's also a great source for working year to year because you can just populate the new data into, like if you put in the new odometer reading, it will calculate, the mileage driven. And so it makes it, an easy way to keep track year after year and have the same data points. One data point I want to specifically call out because it's become more important than it used to be is this vehicle identification number. Like a lot of times people used to put like, oh, this is the blue Chevy or something like that over here. And we didn't really worry about it. Or they'd put in the license plate number or something else, because it was just literally a way to ID the vehicle. But a lot of the new technologies that, including some I'm going to talk about in just a second, they actually use the VIN number to look up the type of vehicle and the year that it was, like they can actually get more data about that vehicle from the VIN number. So I recommend as you're walking around looking at your fleet vehicles and making notes about the odometer and everything, don't skip out on that VIN number because it's more important than it was, in these technologies now. The other technology that Ken talked about is these little monitors that can be put into vehicles to track driving patterns and mileage and even idle time. They're called telematics, and they can be pretty cost effective depending on how much your fleet is driven. Just a show of hands, if you don't mind, how many folks know that their municipal fleet that they're working with uses telematics in any way? Is anyone aware of their fleet doing that? So it doesn't look like, yeah, I don't see that much uptake on this. Once I'm done talking, I'm going to put a link to a webinar we had literally a year ago, where Edison's fleet manager was talking about the use of telematics in their fleet and how it really saved them a lot of money. It's an interesting technology. It's not for every fleet, but it's something to know about and to look into. And the reason, so one of the things that is happening more and more available is fleet analysis programs, including some that are free, like these that are available from Atlas Hub, which is a nonprofit group. This program is called the Dashboard for Rapid Vehicle Electrification, or the Drive tool. And you can upload your fleet inventory. Again, this is where that VIN number comes in very important, because that's how they use the how they figure out the basic data about the car, or the vehicle, I should say. And this tool works with the Sustainable Jersey fleet inventory template. So you upload the fleet inventory template into the Drive tool, and it gives you recommendations about which vehicles would be most cost effective to replace, like which vehicles should be prioritized in fleet electrification. And it tells you the basic costs of doing that. They also have another tool that makes an evaluation for a single vehicle. So if you don't have a fleet inventory, but you're just interested in one particular vehicle, it will tell you more about that. And all of the free resources that they offer are at atlasevhub.com.
Tracy.
And yeah.
So 2 questions on the telematics. When you said they could become cost efficient, about how expensive is one of these plug-in devices? And then also, if you get one, is it possible to, plug it into vehicle number 1 for 2 weeks, get a reading, then take it out and plug it into vehicle number 2 for 2 weeks, and then use it on multiple vehicles over several months to get a sense?
So it is, it depends on which vendor you go with. Some of them are more integrated into the vehicle, and others are more movable. And the little device itself ranges in price too. But I've seen where the cost can be, just like a couple $100 per vehicle. But depending on, if you're using it for a short period of time to make choices about the vehicle, or some vehicles, in particular, Edison talks about how they have telematics now in their street sweepers and salters and plows, so that they can keep track of where ice or salt has already been spread on the road. That dramatically helped them reduce the amount of salt that they used, which, that's an environmental concern all of its own. But it also helped as, during storms, where they would know which neighborhoods had already been plowed instead of replowing where other drivers had already been. And they also talk a little bit about the fact that telematics helped them reduce their insurance costs and stuff, because they could track where the vehicles had been. Any more questions about these fleet analysis tools? And there's more than these. This is just a sampling of some that that I've seen used. Great. And so now I'm going to talk about incentives that are available for municipal fleets.
I'm sorry, in terms of using these tools, who would be the typical person that would, if I went to the mayor, who would I ask and make a suggestion to? Who's going to load up all this software and do all this?
So it kind of depends on how big the municipality is, and just how much, and also how technically, how techie the people that work in different departments are. I've seen in some larger municipalities, they'll have a fleet manager who will run the telematics program. And I've also seen in smaller towns, it was the assistant business administrator who ran, the technical side of the telematics program.
Is it complicated, or is this something that I could recommend that a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout do for their Gold Award? you have a comment on that?
Well, I think it might be a little bit, it's not that it's complicated, it's that the information about where the fleet cars are, have been maybe considered confidential, especially if they're using it for law enforcement vehicles. They may not feel comfortable having a person outside of the staff, but that would be at the discretion of the municipality.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is the Clean Fleet Program, which is available from the New Jersey Clean Energy Program. And this is the one that Ken was referring to in his price chart. It gives up to $4,000 per battery electric vehicle. And there's also funding for EV charging stations as well. A new attribute for this program is that if you have a larger population community, you can get more vehicles. And this is a relatively new development in this program. So you can see that, communities with populations that are greater than 100,000 can now get like 10 vehicles. So before it was limited to 4 vehicles across the board. No, I'm sorry, it was even less than that. I think it was 2 at one point. But they have increased the number of vehicles that municipalities can get depending on size. New Jersey DEP also has incentives, including the large vehicle program, which right now there isn't an active grant round, but they really run them often enough that it's worth keeping a lookout for them. And these incentivize, diesel replacement vehicles. This is the program that funded Jersey City's 5 new electric trash trucks. Pleasantville got some electric box trucks out of this. So, this is a good program to keep your eye on. They also have an e-mobility program that is for like EV car share and last mile transit and that kind of thing. So that's worth keeping an eye out too. To help you, keep abreast of what's going on in their resources. They have an EV resource document that is updated monthly. It's available as a PDF online, and it talks about, their latest grant resources. And they also have resources to other granting programs, including Sustainable Jersey's grant programs. Another program that I wanted to talk about, and Ken pointed out to me that this program is not currently available to Bergen County, but I just wanted to share it with you because they've been adding areas pretty frequently enough that we want to keep an eye for when it's available in Bergen County. This is a program available through EDA called NJZIP. And it funds mid-weight vehicles, so class 2B. So that's any truck that's heavier than like a standard pickup truck, all the way up to class 6, which is a lightweight garbage truck or like a smallish school bus. I want to show you the other thing that's interesting about this program is that on the website, they have a listing. So if those of you who have tried to shop for non-sedan vehicles know that it's pretty difficult. That it's difficult to know which vendors have which trucks and where you can purchase them from and everything like that. And they have right on here a list of potential vendors that have been cleared for this program. They've already filled out all the procurement information for New Jersey, and it makes it an interesting shopping. It gives you a sense of where you can look for vehicles that would be available in this area. So I'll tell you, when we, earlier on, when we were trying to help municipalities and stuff shop for mid or heavyweight vehicles, we would look around and then find out, oh, that vehicle is only available in California, or that vehicle, is only, isn't available yet. So this is a list of vendors and vehicles that are, ready to be delivered to New Jersey. And it's just an interesting resource I wanted to show you all. Let's see, let me go back to, okay. And then of course, Now, what percentage, what utility is most of Bergen County in? Is it almost all PSEG, or raise your hand if you don't have PSEG?
There's also Orange and Rockland Electric in Bergen County.
Okay. So Orange and Rockland does have, their EV webpage there. You can see the link at the bottom. PSEG's program is a lot more active right now, and it helps fund electric vehicle charging equipment in the sense that it funds the make ready component. So you can see the little infographic up at the top that talks about what make ready comprises. It's all the expenses that are, from the power line to the transformer, to the meter, the electric panel, and then even including the conduit that goes to the EV charger. All of those components make up the make ready infrastructure for electric vehicles. And there's funding from the utility, from PSEG, to pay for those expenses. And programs like the Clean Fleet program and DEP's It Pays to Plug In can fund the EV chargers. Are there any questions about Make Ready?
So Jay, I have a really technical question.
Mm-hmm.
So Upper Saddle River, we get our natural gas from PSE&G, but our electricity from Rockland Electric. Do you have any idea?
I suspect that they would say that you have to go with Rockland Electric for the EV.
Okay.
Yeah, they have been dividing it that way. Yeah.
Tracy, do you know if we can combine grants, like if we like purchased the actual charger from one, and used funds from one agency for that, and then used the utility for the make ready part of it?
Yes, you can combine those. They don't want you to use the same incentives for the same physical, object. You couldn't use, It Pays to Plug In and Clean Fleets for the EV charger. You can't stack the two incentives.
Tracy, is this funding from the utilities like PSE&G, would that be for what kind of make ready? Would that be for municipal and also for residential, for everything?
So they have a special incentive that they're doing for residential, and we should look on their website to see. I know that they're offering incentives for the level 2 charging for residential, but I don't want to tell you something and be wrong. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is refer you to that link there for the residential, because it is being updated so frequently that I don't want to tell you information that's outdated.
Okay.
And let's see. Oh, okay. So just before I stop presenting, I want to take a few minutes to just tell you about some things that are coming up in, in terms of grant programs and everything for, there's a new round of Sustainable Jersey grant that is funded by the PSEG Foundation, and it is eligible for all municipalities. And the grant levels are $2,000, $10,000, and $20,000. And the application is due on February 11th. They had a webinar on December 13th that gave more information about applying for the grant. And that webinar can be found on the webinar page of Sustainable Jersey. So if you're interested in, applying for funding for, could be some of the projects that we've talked about or any other form of sustainability project, that's a great grants program. And also, I have a webinar coming up on this Wednesday that's about funding for transitioning fleets to EVs. And it has, you can see the picture, this is a Jim Duvall of Maple Woods Police Department talking about, they have a Ford Mustang that they got for their police fleet. And I just typed out one of the quotes from the video. He says if he wants to see the car, he has to request that it be brought to the station because it's so popular. It's like never there because the officers always have it out with them, that it's a very popular car in their fleet. And he answers some of the questions about the price difference from other vehicles they've bought and, you know, the experience of having that vehicle on the fleet. Also, Lauren would ask me to remind you all that to save the date for the Sustainability Summit. Lauren, do we have the location nailed down for that yet?
Yes,
Or
it's
is that-
at Bill Works again in Homedale where we had it in 2019.
And if you've never been to a Sustainable Jersey Summit, I went to them for years before I worked for Sustainable Jersey because they're just really fun. It's a lot of, you know, green teams from all over the state and, you know, getting to talk to people who have very similar interests to you. So it's a fun day. And also we have a submission up right now for municipalities to join a technical assistance program for SolSmart, which is a program that helps with ordinances for solar and also for permitting issues for solar. And so if you're interested in that, you can send an email to info@sustainablejersey.com and they will give you information about that technical assistance opportunity. There's also a new solar app that's available from the US Department of Energy that's free for municipalities to use in permitting solar, and it reduces permitting time by 5 to 10 days, which can really you know, make a difference in getting solar permitting done. And there's the website for that. And then those of you who have access to, you know, that also work with your schools, Sustainable Jersey Student Climate Challenge is happening right now, and it's not too late to register for it. One of the things I was telling Ken, one of the components for it is we're doing a webinar for electric vehicles that's aimed at high school students. And, you know, I had to get coached in a new way to talk about EVs so that I wasn't saying things like fleet analysis. But it was kind of a funny experience to think about how to talk to 17 and 18-year-olds about EVs. And so if you work with your school's program, that's an interesting opportunity as well. And that's my slides.
Fantastic, Tracy. That's really awesome. Yeah.
That was absolutely marvelous, Tracy. That's quite a fantastic collection of resources. Are the slides going to be available on the posting? Those are really slides I'd want to latch onto.
Yeah, I'll give them to Ken. The only one I realized that, and it's only because you know, it's been the standard bearer of EV incentives for so long that I forgot to put in a slide about it, is DEP's It Pays to Plug In program. So I'm going to add a slide about that. I sort of realized as I was going through the slides, where's the It Pays to Plug In program, which again, just that program gives incentives for public EV charging, but can also be for, you know, other types of EV charging. So I recommend looking for that as well.
But thanks, that would be helpful. In fact, actually, that's the one that we were most familiar with. But that certainly would be helpful having another slide.
Are there any more questions for Tracy or either of us, actually?
Yeah, hi, this is.
I have a legal question.
I have a question. Ken, when you put up one of your early charts there, you showed the police vehicles with ages going back to 2002, I think. And you said that survey was done in 2017, which means they're getting about 15 years on a police car. And now if we're going to recommend switching over to electric vehicles, what's the actual realistic battery life for an electric vehicle? I mean, could anybody anticipate that they're going to be able to get 15 years out of an electric vehicle, just like they can with a car right now, an ICE car?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. You know, good question, Owen. Actually, that wasn't a police car on that list. They were other departments, and we're not initially going to be suggesting that the police buy an electric vehicle. and it's complicated also because they lease. So, but leasing is also an option, and you get the same benefits if you lease an electric car. And so again, lease cars don't last for 15 years. You typically they're going to be maybe a 3-year, or maybe 4 or 5-year lease. So then you don't have that issue with the battery. But yeah, this is maybe a subject, for a longer conversation. But there are anecdotal reports out there of, these have to be owners of cars that, the answer partly is you don't know, because many of these cars have not been around for more than a few years. But there are anecdotal reports of, people who had Tesla Model S since 2014 or whatever, when they first came out with, 450,000 miles on them. And yeah, they replaced the battery, but, they replaced them under warranty and it was free. So it's not necessarily going to be as expensive as you think. Of course, there are expenses along the way, but, overall, I think the idea is that they're going to be less than a gas car, even taking the battery into consideration. And I know the Consumer Reports study did take the battery replacement into consideration.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ken.
Sure.
Tracy, do you know why, if there was a state statute passed July of last year that was effective in September, why did the slides suggest that we still pass municipal ordinances?
Sure. So, one reason for that is so that as developers and stuff are looking for the rules of a municipality, it's right there in their municipal code. So that, just to create awareness is one, because that's how developers are used to looking for the rules in different municipalities. It also creates awareness in the planning board and with the staff that those are the rules, so that, it helps with implementation. Some of the components of the rules are that, you have to have make ready at the time of the certificate of occupancy, but only a certain percentage have to actually have EV chargers on them. And then 3 years after the certificate of occupancy, you have to get a certain number more EV chargers. And that, that kind of thing is all going to be up to the code office to enforce the implementation of. So having this all written into the local code really helps support all of that, rather than saying, outside of our local code, you also have to look to state to, find out the full set of rules. It just makes it one rule book for all the things that are going on with new construction.
Thank you.
Ken, you're muted. It looks like you're talking.
It's very easy to do. So it's really, there's no, it's not like there's a, high energy barrier to do it. Totally, really recommend everybody do it. I know some towns have already done it. I think maybe Fairlawn has, and a couple of others maybe. But yeah, it is strongly encouraged.
Yeah, I mean, we did it. To Ken's point, it took me one presentation one night, and they decided to do it.
Yeah, I thought you guys did it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did it. I think we did it before July. Part of the reason I was asking, I need to do some research. I don't know if our local ordinance was superseded and replaced by the state code, or if it's inconsistent, but I still need to look at it.
So yours was a rhetorical question.
Well, yeah, a little bit, but also for the benefit of everyone. I thought other people might be wondering, or someone's going to say, well, I know my mayor won't do anything if there's already a county or a state rule on it. And so I suspect that other people might say, well, I'm not going to draft an ordinance. There's already state law on it. I don't have time for that. There's already law, Jay. You don't ask me to write a law when there's already a law.
Yeah, it's really a unique circumstance. And hopefully the idea that there's, this is the template ordinance, it's already been approved by DCA and the attorney does not need to, parse every word or anything, will really help move it along, because it's not the same, heavy lift of a normal ordinance.
Just a question now, is this a redundancy? If it's a state law, wouldn't it be more productive that these environmental issues get grouped together as a single document and make it easier for these townships? Because I know Wyckoff is not going to adopt something that's already as a state requirement, and they're going to look at it as just being redundancy. I think it's good, Hal.
I believe that the problem is that there are some places in this ordinance where there is leeway for municipality to change some things, and other things are totally obligatory by state law. So it is a good idea for somebody in your town to look at the draft ordinance, the template ordinance, and see where they want to have any aberrations done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's
again,
the,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tracy. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, that's the reasonable standards section that sets the standards for things like, you know, the safety measures, the lighting, the signage, you know, that can be amended by the municipalities. But most of the sections about like the amount of EV that's required and everything are static. They can't be changed.
Right. So again, getting back to my point, it's a state requirement. So to actually have it adopted at the local level, I mean, I could see the argument that it's redundancy. I do think what would be helpful, though, if these requirements that are, you know, let's say green environments are lumped together into a single document that could be given to the different zoning boards to make them aware of it. I think that would be much more productive than trying to spend time and effort to have an ordinance issued. It's just basically a redundancy.
Any other questions before we move on with the agenda? If not, I really want to, thank Tracy again for, coming out to be with us tonight and giving a great presentation with a lot of great information. I know I'm going to look forward to seeing the slide deck and putting it to work and applying for some grants. So thanks again. You're welcome to hang around if you want to learn the nitty gritty of what's going on with plastic and styrofoam.
Yeah, I'm going to listen in for a little while and finish up that slide deck and send it over to you. Thank you so much for having me, everyone.
All right, so we're going to move on now to committee reports. Normally we'd spend a few minutes with each. I can tell you right off the bat, just skipping down, that the electric car committee hasn't met for a few months. And since we've already talked a lot about EVs, I'm not going to go over, there's nothing to report there. So I can give up my time. Why don't we go ahead then with the single-use plastics and styrofoam? That's now a combined committee. And I just put John and Larry's names down there, but I know we've got, Mark Savastano and Mark Olson, and a lot of other people, Brian, who've been very involved in this lately. I guess what I would do is myself mostly stay out of it, but just to set the stage, I guess, there's been more discussion in this area than everything else combined in the last few months. And it mostly centers around styrofoam collection, where, we're trying to transition from a drive, kind of a drive once a month sort of thing, or, where individual towns do a couple of drives a year. Some of them invite, anybody from the county with the drive, and others don't. And they fill up a bunch of trucks and then drive it to polymolding, which is a facility not too far away from here that can process it. But it's got a lot of challenges, and we've reached out to our county commissioners to get some funding and some support, and that's been a little rough. We're looking for a solution that can make this really kind of a more sustainable practice of collecting and recycling the styrofoam. And I think the current issue is, we've got a few issues. and then I'm gonna leave it. But in one of those issues is that it's our ability to take it to polymolding in Haskell, is it where I guess they're how easily they're going to accept it. They're raising their prices, the tipping fee, the use of plastic bags. All those things are negatives. So that's one thing I think we want to discuss. And the other is, how we can improve that. How do we get our commissioners involved? And then, what's the way forward with trying to get another, a third party here to collect it for us and reduce it using a densifier.
Yeah.
So who'd like to kind of, I don't know, John or Larry or one of the Marks, if you want to give us some thoughts.
Yeah.
Ken, I'm just going to start off, and then I want John to follow through with the detail. Just quickly, we had our meeting on the 11th, which most of you know about, and we had an interesting agenda, a pretty long agenda that covered styrofoam-free business program, EPS recycling, plastic film recycling, which we spent a lot of time on. And then rigid plastics recycling, which we didn't get to. And the idea is in our next meeting, we're going to continue all these topics and hopefully get to the rigid plastic recycling, because I'd like to do more on that. And the next meeting is going to be February 15th. So you can put that on your calendar. We'll make sure it's on the base camp calendar as well. We had a bunch of goals that were set. You can look up the agenda. The agenda is in Basecamp, so you can look through the detail on that. We covered a lot of stuff on the agenda. Well, we did spend a tremendous amount of time on Brian's business program. We spent some time on the EPS recycling because of all the recycling collections that have gone on. But we spent a lot of time on Trex and related issues. So what I would like to do now is just switch it over to John Adams and have him give some detail on what we covered. It would help a lot.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, so I was just going to fill in just a little bit, but I just want to say that we had a banner month in collecting this month already. We had at least a four-town effort back on the 9th of this month. And we collected over a tractor trailer load full of styrofoam, I think, in total. So that's well over 1,000 pounds of styrofoam. That's a lot of foam. So that's exciting. And what I think our group is really setting sights on is that we are planning to go forward and helping all the towns that want to do their own collection drives. We want to be able to support that. We want to try to make sure that they have the best practices, and we've got some good information on how they do it. We help in getting volunteers. We help in getting signage and information, technical information, as well as how to work with the recyclers that we use. So that going forward, we're going to do that. But the bigger plan and others who can talk to this, but the bigger plan is to really make a sustainable kind of recycling service for our county. And our goal is really to make it possible so it's easy and convenient to do the foam recycling. We know how much of this is produced and consumed in our metropolitan area, and it's a lot. And this is one of the single-use plastics that we think really should not be going to the landfills. And we've done a lot of research on this, and we have a strategy and plan going forward to be able to promote this idea of local densification. And really, that's really the key to making it sustainable, not to basically cart air halfway across the country. It's just it has to be compacted to its most highest state to be of any value from a commodity standpoint. So again, all that comes together, the economics, the material handling, and the residential participation all come together to make this a role, hopefully a viable service for our county. And we just keep asking the questions to our elected officials, to our town councils and mayors, why this is not a local service that's easy for consumers to do. So that's where we are with the EPS recycling. We are also supporting the the new legislation that's coming into full effect in May, which is the plastics ban here in the state, which encompasses another form of styrofoam, which is the food contact styrofoam. So that's the XPS. And from the start of our styrofoam program in Bergen County, we've always wanted to, find alternatives where good alternatives make sense. And this is one category that we think makes all sense in the world, and we really support the legislation. And to that, I'm going to have Brian Riley mention what we're trying to do in terms of educating our businesses to the impacts of the law and how they can start to find alternatives to the food contact styrofoam. So Brian, if you want to mention just quickly what we're doing with Styrofoam Biz and the whole intent of trying to reach other businesses in our county to give them kind of the warning that, yeah, they're going to have, if they're affected, they're going to have to change their materials that they use. They're going to have to purchase different materials that are now being mandated. And Brian can talk about that real quickly. Go ahead, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So just keeping it really brief. So we rolled out Styrofoam Free Business about 2 months ago. At this point, we've been to about 60% of the food places here in our town. We have about 35. So we're seeing good reception, and it's been fairly easy to set up meetings with independent restaurants. As you can imagine, working with chains is kind of tough. And I think that's potentially where we can scale our efforts here. In a previous meeting, though, I think I took everybody through this in the plastic subcommittee meeting, went through everything as well. There's documents that have been uploaded into Basecamp. So we have, I think it's about 4 documents at this point. So there's the overview that we pulled together for Oakland, which I can add in any town name if any towns want to adopt this program and bring it on. It's pretty easy to edit that. I have a PDF of the actual legislation, and that's something we share directly with businesses. I have an Excel spreadsheet showing the cost of all the banned items and prices of environmentally friendly alternatives for them to leverage and switch to. And we have a Google form as well, and I think I dropped a link to it on Basecamp as well. But that's something that, again, we can share with any town that wants to adopt the program. So when we go into a business, we share all the documentation that we have and have the meeting with them, talk about what they're currently using, talk about what's going to be phased out, and opportunities for them to switch to something environmentally friendly. The meetings have been 15 to 30 minutes max. We get some really good data coming out of it. So they're answering about 20 questions for us, including also sharing all their contact information and all of that, because we don't have that at the town level, unfortunately. So all of that is on Basecamp, and I'll be uploading a new document probably within the next week once we get approval from our borough administrator. But we pulled together a soft warning letter that we're going to be leaving at businesses that are non-compliant with the straws by request only legislation. So there's been a number of places that we've gone into that continue to be non-compliant after we've told them 2, 3, 4, 5 times what's going on with that. So we want to leave this soft warning letter with them. And that's something that's sitting with the borough administrator right now for approval, but obviously any town can take it. It's a Word document. You can adjust the wording accordingly. So a few other things to note. So I chose a chain just sort of arbitrarily here in our town. So I chose Dunkin', and within about 20 minutes of looking around on LinkedIn, I found their government affairs team and their sustainability team. So I reached out to all 3 of the folks over there when I saw that about half a dozen Dunkins were non-compliant in our county with the straw by request only ban. I reached out to them. Within 10 minutes, I had an email back. They were jumping all over it. And from what I understand, John went to a Dunkin' a couple towns away from me. A couple days later, all the straws were gone. So yeah, actually, they did the extreme end of all that. They just weren't handing out straws anymore. And they mentioned that some kind of alternative was coming. So it's harder to reach some of these people. Like when you go into an actual Dunkin', nobody there really knows anything about what's going on. But once you start climbing the ladder a little bit and reaching out to the right folks, we can make things happen. I've also had a call with the New Jersey Restaurant and Hospitality Association, so they're up to speed on what we're doing, how we're working directly with businesses here. She was going to, kind of sleep on it. This was end of last week, and come back to me with a couple ideas, but all opportunities for us to scale this up and out across the state, because it's nice having the conversations with individual businesses, but it's hard to scale it.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey,
Cool.
John,
Yeah.
can I just update everybody that as of the beginning of this year, the Ridgewood Recycling Department is accepting styrofoam. And a couple of weeks ago, the Village Council authorized the Recycling Department to accept an offer from Foam Cycle to take a densifier on trial with a view to purchasing it. So I don't know what the time frame is, but they've got authorization now to move ahead with that. Unfortunately, I think Mark Savastano can probably tell me. I think Foam Cycles does use heat, doesn't it, Mark?
Yeah,
so
yes.
there are some issues.
Well, that's the most common and quite frankly, the easiest way to do it. And also everybody should know that that's what's happening at Polymoly. So bringing the material there is causing the same effect as doing it locally.
Yeah.
And the idea of using a cold densifier is difficult because of the size of the equipment that's necessary, the quantity of material that you would need to keep it regularly operating. And to do that on a bigger scale in Bergen County would require the participation in advance of multiple municipalities and large municipalities. So yes, in answer to your question,
yeah,
that's what's happening.
But what I was going to say, this is fantastic news that we have a town of Ridgewood is going to be taking this on and doing local densification, because we really are striving to find, present examples of this technology and show that it's a viable thing to happen on a local setting, and really that's what we want to do. Yeah, so again, we're trying to do that in other locations in the county, and again, it's all about just proving out the technology, and hopefully we'll get to the right spot. The point that Mark makes is very valid about the concerns to air pollutants in the air, and the cold densification process is one way around that. But that's stuff that we'll learn as we go forward here. But yeah, so that's kind of the wrap up on the styrofoam program right now. As I say, welcome to join us on the 20th if you want to learn more about this. And I was going to say, if there are any towns that are thinking about doing this, please, that is a collection, please let us know, and we'll add you to the list. We'll advertise for you. And again, we've got all kinds of resources to help your town and your committee do this well. So
John, before you move on, I would like to say a few more things in regard to that, and specifically about G2 Revolution. What the problem right now is, they're concerned about the true commitment of New Jersey municipalities in participating in a program. So what I did was I went onto the hub site and I gathered a list of the people that I know would be interested in hearing about this. And I created an Excel sheet, and I want to send that over to Scott DeMuth of G2 Revolution, so that he can either reach out or recognize that there's a large group of people that want to participate, and get a better feeling for what's actually happening here, not only in Bergen County, but in New Jersey in general. And I firmly believe that that is the ticket to having something happen that's sustainable with this program. Other than that, continuing to do what we are doing here, the model that we have recognized is successful but unsustainable in respect to the cost to bring it there, not only monetarily, but ecologically, is not correct. So having somebody either do it on site or collect it for us and condense it is the model that we should be striving to achieve.
Yeah, one analogy may be the paper shredding that happens in many towns in the county. We would really we're idealizing a event where we, instead of shredding paper, we would be receiving EPS styrofoam and just compacting it right there in the spot. So it's a great demonstrative thing. People would understand it right away that, hey, we could just make this an event for our town, and that would be fine for our friends at G2 Revolution. I think ultimately, if they understand how many towns would be probably interested in doing that. So it's a great project that we're working on. And I just want to give just a little bit of background as to why, change the subject, but why we why we went to just the plastics group and combined single-use plastics with the styrofoam-free program. The styrofoam-free has been very successful, and when we thought about it, it is just a single-use plastic, and all the other materials that are of concern in our environment are single-use plastics too. So we're very much committed as a whole group to reducing or really tackling the whole problem of plastic pollution. And so, again, we're talking about like plastic films and rigid plastics, and we're trying to build upon the success that we've had with the, really diving deep into one particular class of plastics and trying to apply it to other ones and trying to learn. So one of the things that we're going to be doing in our group, this is my goal for the group, and the challenge I'm putting out forward for our group is to really see what we can learn about this. I'm trying to look at a whole bunch of possible meetings and visits, possibly field trips to some of the important players in the plastics world, here in the area. And our whole goal is to learn and to kind of find best practices and to really try to get to this idea of sustainable material use in our society. Right now, with things escaping the environment, things going to landfill and massive amounts, stuff ending up in our oceans and all the rest, it's not sustainable. It was never planned for it to be sustainable. It's forever plastics that we've got with us. Every single one's been produced is still with us. So again, that's sort of our goal. But I didn't want to leave without saying some really good news. And the really good news is here in New Jersey, we just passed legislation that will require a percentage of post-consumer plastic content. And this is targeting predominantly the large applications, but as I understand right now, it's the beverage bottle industry and also the rigid plastic container industry. So that's like the beverage bottles. I assume that's like, in the grocery store, like butter cups and yogurt cups and things like that. But what's the requirement now is 10% for the non-beverage and 15% content for the beverage bottles. And this is really a big deal. And I'm not sure if there's any other state has done this or if New Jersey is the first in doing this. And if someone knows the answer to that one, let me know. But this is really a big deal because this is a lifeline to our recyclers because the economics are such that that no one wants to go off from using the virgin plastics, and they will not want to deal with putting in recycled content. Putting the recycling content builds a business. It builds the recycling business here in New Jersey, and so this is, as I say, exciting news. I think it's one of our jobs is to try to educate regular people, regular citizens, why this is a big deal and how it's really going to help us in the long run to get a higher rate of recycling and making recycling more effective. So that's it. For our group. If anyone wants to add anything more about the plastics group, please do. But please join us. Consider joining. It's on the 20th.
I want to point out
15th.
Oh yeah, right.
15th, and
Oh,
Sylvia
sorry.
had her hand up. Was that a question about this?
I was just going to ask Bob if he has any idea of the approximate cost of that small densifier that they might be getting it or that they're testing. Any idea?
I don't know what the numbers are, Sylvia.
And also if there's any option, any possibility for shared services, because that could also be for neighboring towns.
That was mentioned when the proposal was made to our council that down the road, after gaining experience, that might be an option to start partnering with other neighboring towns.
Sylvia, this is Mark Savastano. I produced a document for the county that's on the hub that has the price of all of the densifiers, from the largest to the smallest, and it includes the information about foam cycle. So if you look at the document, yeah, you'll find that report, and it gives you accurate information about pricing.
Yeah, and is that one of those movable densifier bars?
Yes.
Yeah, it is like on wheels, right? They can move it from town to town.
Yeah, they make several different sizes, but the issue with them was the throughput. I actually went to see the one that they have in Sussex County and fed material into the machine. Unless you get one of the larger ones, they are dog slow. So
it is a manual feeding.
Yes, there's no feeding mechanism into those particular machines unless you get one of their much larger pieces. And well, again, you can see the pricing. And if you go to their website, it shows the different types of machines that they offer.
I'd like to ask one more thing. Is Bob, about Ridgewood? That's extremely good news. Mark Olson, did Englewood complete get their densifier set up at all yet, or is that still ongoing? You're
Mark,
muted.
you're muted.
I don't see Mark Olson.
Better?
I'm not sure he's still with us.
Okay. Englewood has a baler for plastic
Oh, I'm
bags.
sorry.
And Englewood spent this year and is spending this year on a composting program for all of its leaves in the village. And the deal with Englewood for a densifier was the offer to all the municipalities that if everybody chipped in $2,000, there'd be enough money to buy a densifier. So far, only Richfield Park and Pagoda have taken them up. But I'm sure that offer still stands.
I didn't realize that was an actual standing offer. So that, we should definitely, I mean, how many towns would they need to have, as part of the consortium to go through with it?
Probably not that many, that low price machine is not that expensive.
At the current rates for polymolding, that's only 16 trips to break even on $2,000.
Oh
Right?
my goodness.
Right.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I have three quick comments.
It's a bit far from Glen Rock, so it makes more sense for towns that are closer to Englewood.
Well, we have to talk nicely to Bob and Ridgewood.
Yeah, I don't make the decisions, guys.
Yeah.
I have three quick comments.
But that's not a bad model to have a group like that. It's a good model.
I have a question though. Once the styrofoam has been compacted, is there additional cost for that to be hauled away, or does that product have a value as an upcycle product?
It has a value. It depends. With Foam Cycle, they cart it away for you, and they bring it to a company that makes plastic frames in Princeton out of it. So they are paying you, and it varies, anything from 16 cents up to 25 cents. And that is deducted per pound, I believe. And what happens is they deduct the cost of taking it away from the price that they're paying you. You still end up with a few cents, but it's certainly much less than the cost of having to cart it away yourself. And of course, if you have to store it for a short period of time, it's much less material. So it makes sense in every respect.
Thank you.
Amy has her hand up.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Martin. I'm a councilwoman in Glen Rock, and I just want to say how incredibly impressed I am. I'm so happy to be here tonight, and it's all the work that you all do is just amazing. I'm totally on board with so much of this, and our environmental commission in Glen Rock is phenomenal. They're amazing too. I do have a question though. I've been curious, and I've asked before, and forgive me if this has already been said. I'm curious about the densifiers, the styrofoam densifiers, and if there's any hard data on the pollutants with the heating, because that concerns me greatly. As much as I understand very much how important it is to densify this stuff, you know, it seems like it would be kind of silly to be helping in one way and hurting in another environmentally. So I was just wondering if there's any hard data.
Yes, there is hard data. I can forward the information to you if you put your contact information. The issue is these studies have been done by the manufacturers.
Right, that's always the case.
And there is no hard data saying that the fumes are actually harmful, only that they
That's
smell.
always the case too.
Well, and it does. And I know that Brian Riley took the same trip that I did over to polymolding, and I'm sure he experienced the same thing that I did when I was there. It stinks like hell inside that plant. And
I'm sure.
I can't understand how those workers don't walk home with a headache every day.
It was terrible. Nobody had
awful.
masks on or anything. The fumes were awful.
Yes. And I can't
Absolutely.
understand, but by doing it on a smaller scale, which would be done with one of these units that would be purchased locally, it's not that bad. It's in an open air area. You're not producing tons of it. So
Right.
it's tolerable. There is concern that neighbors might complain, but all of the research that I have done and the output from the studies shows that, in fact, it's not anything that is necessarily bad for you. It's not proven to be carcinogenic. It just stinks. Like
Right,
burning
except for the
glass.
fact that we know that the materials that are being melted are carcinogenic. So
Yes.
it seems a little hard to believe. I mean, I don't
And-
want to argue this point, but that's why I'd like to see
No,
the data.
it's a good point. It's a good point to argue. The major
You know,
point
we're
of
trying
this,
to,
no matter what you do, the material is bad one way or another. And
right, so,
it's being melted somewhere in New Jersey, if it's not being done locally. We're
Right.
bringing it to a place that is processing it the same way you would process it locally. So if you want to do something about recycling the material, there's no way around it except to possibly purchase a cold compression machine. And
well,
those
perhaps
are,
if there's more demand for the cold pressure, you know, that they would be used more. I mean, obviously, I understand that it's always the cost.
well,
that,
it's a matter of getting a
bottom line.
commitment from multiple municipalities, getting funding, getting a building and a location. And
Well, I think that would be a good mission. I know
it's
that
been our
Ken's
mission
been
for
working
2
on that.
years.
Good. Well, I'm happy to jump on that. I'm happy to jump on that bandwagon.
Well,
If
we're happy to
you'd
have
like.
you. Yeah, we're happy to have you, but.
Yeah, we need to pull Tracy Zur back
Yes,
into the conversation.
Amy, you can help us at the county level.
Yeah, I'll help. I'll do what I can on the county level, but
Awesome.
thank you for
Yeah.
taking my question.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Oh,
No?
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
Actually pivoting to single-use plastics other than styrofoam. The first is a recommendation for you all, maybe a little bit quirky. I've become comfortable with using my takeout containers. Not that we eat out often, but we take them to the restaurants when we go, and we reuse the takeout container so we don't get a new clamshell. And you might consider doing that yourself. The second comment that I have is a request for all of you. Please tell me, I'm not sure that they're going to be receptive, but I've really started collecting a lot of these reusable takeout food containers. We have several residents in town that twice a week, I think they're preparing like 50 meals that they donate to people who need meals. And when I see their posting on Facebook, I always see their piles of takeout containers that they must be buying. And I'm wondering if I can get enough people who just on a supplemental basis, who will scrupulously clean their own takeout containers, that we can donate to that group of other volunteers. And so instead of buying new single-use plastic or other types of containers, at least these can be used at least twice for meals to help those other group of volunteers. If you're interested in doing that, you can reach me on Basecamp, tell me that you might be willing to do it. And if they're going to be receptive to using the containers, then we can figure out how to get your containers and put them into the reuse stream. And please also tell me if that's a bad idea. Do you think that's?
Jay, did you try? Did you actually ask for your takeout places if they would use containers like that we clean for them? Would they use them?
So no, I haven't gone to a Chinese restaurant and say, here's the food, will you please put my food in it? But when I sit down and instead of a doggy bag, I'll just put it rather than asking the waiter for a new clamshell. I just reuse it.
Oh, if you eat there, yeah, and then you
When
put
I eat there.
your leftovers. Oh, okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Jay, I have done
Good
that
idea.
at Uncle Giuseppe's. I brought my containers there and had them put my purchase in my own containers that I bought there in the past. So if you ask, they may say no, but it's a possibility that they will agree and do that for you.
Yeah, I did it. I could tell you that, not that I did it at my old cafeteria when the cafeteria was open at my workplace. And yeah, I did it hundreds of times. So yeah, you're right. If you ask, they'll do it. Maybe.
Hey, Han, I see your note about speaking with Tracy Zura at the Ramsey Farmers Market. Did she say anything, or was it just too quick of an interaction? Or did you leave?
I saw her and I said hi, and then I said, hey, listen, what are you doing? Because we've been waiting for you. And she said she's been very busy and this and that and whatnot all. And then we started talking about EV chargers and EV vehicles at the county level. And she seems to be very enthusiastic about that. So that's a good thing. But I really encourage her to contact John Adams or anyone else about the styrofoam. And yeah, I don't know whether she has or not.
Okay, well, it's good to hear that anyway. The feedback, yeah. I think we have to, we talked about it, and we'll talk about it on the 15th. I think meeting with the BCUA and also, her or the other commissioners, and just keep pounding the wall there.
Yeah.
Okay. Any?
So I guess it's that's our 2 to 3 minute report on plastics and styrofoam.
What? Has it already been 2 minutes? Can't believe it.
Wow.
You still have 30 seconds. Come on.
All right. Thanks, Larry, and thanks everybody for that. I knew it was going to be a big one. Are there any other updates from any other committees, either Solar or Creative Bergen?
Wally asked to keep it out of the report, was not to upset his wife, but the dog.
I could do a quick one for Creative Bergen if you want.
Yes, the vet wanted to run a test on.
Can you mute?
For some reason, Wally adamantly.
Yeah, please mute if you're not presenting.
Creative Bergen's Art Amble for 2022 on schedule. We're working towards it. The date is June 10, 11, and 12. There's a initial deadline, or there's a deadline for artists to register to get in the print brochure, February 18th, which is coming up. And we recently held a meeting to try to get, our goal is to get 3 to 5 more municipalities every year. We had a meeting a little while ago, and we're going to get at least, I believe, Paramus and New Milford involved this year, who were not involved last year, and possibly more. And I'd also like to say that as last year's chair, my job this year for Creative Bergen is to directly help the hub members with arts and creative placemaking points. So I did an inventory of all the municipalities involved in the hub, and I may be slightly outdated here, but just some striking things. Wyckoff, Ridgewood, Ramsey, Paramus, and Maywood are all silver and they have no arts and creative placemaking points, which is not true. They should. It's a matter of documenting. And some of this is low-hanging fruit. It's easily achievable. Creative Bergen can function as the creative team for these municipalities. So what I'm saying is every one of us should have at least 20 points. And that's creative team and creative inventory, which Creative Bergen can help you with. I was also surprised to see that Richfield Park, where I'm from, has got the highest number of points in arts. And I wouldn't call us the most bohemian of communities. But it's a matter of documenting. Utilizing creative assets can be worth up to 30 points, and all our municipalities are doing it. So in all of these things, we would like to help. Just get a hold of me directly, or get a hold of Larry or Christine. They'll direct you probably to me, maybe not. My email is mark-olson@verizon.net if you want to get a hold of me, and be happy to talk to you. Thanks.
It's good that you remind us all that is a great resource, and when it comes to recertifying, no reason not to get the creative art action. So the only other, we've got solar, but I think, Jay, did you say there's been any activity, or are you planning to have a committee meeting?
So there's been no activity. What I'll share with everyone is 3 times in the last 3 weeks, people have just approached me randomly, asking me about solar, and then I got a couple emails. So I know there continues to be a lot of interest by residents about solar. So I'm going to try to make a personal commitment to run a Zoom seminar with those people on the solar committee sometime within the next many weeks. I'll try to get that done. I'll send out an email to everybody.
Thank you.
Jay, let me know if Sustainable Jersey can help in any way. You know, we've got some people on staff who know some stuff about solar too.
Thank you, Lauren. Will do.
All right, thanks, Jay. So that's it for the committee reports. I'm happy to open it up to any green teams who have any particular activities they'd like to report on or announcements. It's completely up to anybody who would like to share something.
I could share something.
Okay, thanks. You're on.
Yep. So I'm sure you're probably aware that the New Jersey Forest Nursery has a program where every 3rd grader in New Jersey is entitled to get a free little seedling. So the order form is online. You can have the seedlings, sent to your town or a person, or you can go down to one of the many sites to pick up your seedlings. So I just ordered 125. They're free. So if you want to take advantage of that, I would recommend it. The third graders really like it.
Great, thanks.
And Mark Savastano from the Allendale Green Team.
You're up.
I initiated a program here in Allendale to collect and recycle computers, laptops, cell phones, associated wiring for the residents here in town. And that's gone over big when they finally put it on the website. I started getting phone calls immediately. And if there's anybody that's a member of the hub in the surrounding communities of Allendale, I'd be happy to provide that service to you as well.
Mark, where are you taking all of the materials?
There is an electronics recycling place in Rockaway, New Jersey that takes all of these components and recycles them properly so that everything is recovered. And I've been dealing with them for many years. They do a wonderful job. They sort all the products. And it's not just electronics, metals in general, they recycle. So a good place and a good project. I enjoy going there and bringing a pile of equipment.
That's great.
In between the events from the county, I like to do this so that people don't get frustrated and throw it in the garbage.
So that could include also cell phones, for example, and like old Sony Walkmans and old VHS players and audio.
Actually, anything electronic, but I try to keep it manageable for myself. So the smaller items are what I'm willing to collect. And then I direct people other places that'll take their electronics if it's something that I can't handle.
Well, expect a very full car full of things from me sometime in the next couple of months.
Okay, happy to
Cleaning
take
out the basement.
Happy to take it. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Interesting tidbits?
I want to thank Paramus for the styrofoam drive. I went there and they even graciously offered me a duck donut, but New Year's resolution was to not eat donuts, but they bought them, but they had dozens of donuts. I was duly impressed. I'm up to a carload a week of plastic film going to Englewood, Pagoda, and as Mark said, Richfield Park. We shared in the baler. So I was going once every 2 weeks. I'm going once a week now. It's the volume is really increasing.
So you're collecting it from many in your town, or do you have an organized collection?
We have 3 trucks. We were doing the Trex bags for benches, and we got 2 benches.
Okay.
And then Richfield Park, since we went in on the baler, we just bring it to Englewood. We have 3 bins, one at the police station, one at the library, and one at Borough Hall. And I used to go pick it up myself, but I've convinced DPW to take my porch, which is the plastic transfer station. And it just sits there until the weekend and I sort. Unfortunately, it takes hours because there's just bad stuff in there. But at the end of the day, I've got 10 40-gallon bags of pure, plastic film that is just not making its way to the landfill. So it's very gratifying work.
Fantastic. Be careful that you don't call your porch at the transfer station, or the state will slap you for a license application.
Yeah, I know. And John Adams, I do want to get to a drive in Pagoda, and I will reach out to you when we're ready for it.
Yeah, please. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Danielle, we're about to kick off a Trex program in Upper Saddle River. Can you tell us where are you bringing your bags?
Well, we were
Is it
bringing.
Englewood?
Well, I'm bringing them to Englewood, but when we did it, I was bringing them to Target pre-COVID. You'd write to Target, you go to the store manager, and I would just bring them in a shopping cart, and they were really nice. And then all of a sudden, I had to go to the back, and then I think they weren't doing it, so you'd have to check. But Mark, you were doing Target as well, right? We were doing Target for I did like a year's worth at Target.
We're gonna, the person who's doing it said that Wegmans was gonna take ours. I was gonna say, are you sure they're gonna take all of that volume? But they said they would, so.
Yeah. I forgot. Trex gave you the idea of the partners in town, and you write to the store manager, and you arrange for it, and it works.
Okay, thank you. To Coles too, thank you.
I'm bringing all our tracks film to the Whole Food store in Ridgewood, and I just say I'm sorry, I have a lot, and the guy who is standing by there sometimes just says okay. The Trax website has a listing of stores that is that accept the material. Home Depot is supposed to be on there. Kohl's.
How do you weigh
Whole
it?
Foods.
How do you weigh the bags? Isn't that a requirement? You have to weigh it?
Yes, there is a requirement that you weigh it. I bought a fish scale, a fish weighing thing, where it just has a hook that pulls down. That works if it's between 1 and 15 pounds. It doesn't work for less than that. And then I use my kitchen scale for that.
Thank you.
Jay, use the same size bags. I buy a recycling bag, and a full bag would be X pounds. You estimate. They're not really expecting you to.
Oh, okay. I thought you really. I mean, I was thinking I would just hold a bag and look down at the scale, my regular old scale.
You keep an inventory.
You can do that.
You keep an inventory with the date and how many bags. 5 40-gallon bags, and then after a while you weigh the bag and you have an idea of what that weighs, and then you just start replicating.
Thank you.
Somebody made for me a Google form that collects the information and puts it in a spreadsheet.
And Danielle, what does a 40-gallon bag approximately weigh?
I don't remember now because I haven't had to weigh them in a while. Sometimes 5 pounds, sometimes.
Yeah, we found in Oradell that that on average those bags weigh about 5 pounds.
Yeah. And like if you go to Home Depot and you get the 45 to 50-gallon, they weigh more. If you get the 30-gallon, and they're expensive too. I've been doing that out of my own pocket. But if you've tried to buy hefty plastic bags, recycling bags, they're expensive. I go through at least 10 a week.
That's a lot. We buy them in the I guess packs of 200 from Uline. I don't know where you get them.
I just use the shopping bags like from ShopRite and stuff the plastic in there. If you can stuff quite a bit in one, so
yeah,
never bought any.
Yeah, that works.
But when you're collecting the whole town and you've got Trex bins, you can't do it that way. You have to have big bags.
Yeah, it makes sense too.
I get a contractor bag a day on my porch from the DPW.
Any other green team announcements? Getting near the end. Han, do you have something? Quick.
No, I just want to say goodbye and thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, if we can hang in there for just another minute, the next we really need to get the next meeting on the calendar, and more importantly, since it's on the calendar, it's March 28th. I think we agreed that we're meeting every other month. Is that correct? Is my memory serving me correctly?
I thought we were still doing monthly. No?
Are we doing monthly?
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
We don't have to. We don't. I just
Yeah,
thought we had left that.
Show of hands. Who wants monthly? I'm fine with monthly as long as I can get a volunteer. So that the next it would be the last Monday in February, which is, drum roll, the 28th. 20th of February. So do we have, is there a a green team leader, commissioner who can host it?
Ken, I'll host it. Mark Savastano.
That's fantastic. You see, now if we were going out for beer afterwards, the beer would be on me. Okay, so that's like easy, right? But so I owe you one because I've already said that, but that's how it works. Thanks for that, Mark. So I got you down for February 28th, last day of February. Okay, and you get to figure out what your agenda is going to be. That's great. And while so I'm on a roll here, can I sign somebody up for March 28th? I see a smile on John.
Not sure. I don't know.
I didn't want to push that. Anybody else? Or you think about it at least and be prepared to volunteer next month. All right. 1 month at a time anyway. That's good. Thanks, Mark. I strolled right past new business. I don't have any new business. And if anybody else doesn't have any new business, we can bring this to an end. The new business, I suppose, would be to see an old business in the form of a virus disappear. So that's really my new business, so that we can get back to live events. But I guess we'll take that as it goes. Maybe with warmer weather.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody. Good to see you all. And yeah, we'll be together, I guess, for those who are going to be joining the plastic subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome.
Thank you, Ken.
Night.
Thanks a lot, Ken.
Bye, everyone.
Good
Bye.
topic.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good
Oh,
night.
I'm saving the chat, by the way, and I'm going to send it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Also the slides, why don't you send out the slides?
Slides too, yep. And the
That would
Zoom
be-
meeting will be uploaded to YouTube sometime later this week.
Oh, very good. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.